Okay, hello, and welcome, Uleshka. Our actually, in a way, first conversation about Village 3.0 and about Village. So maybe you can say a few words and introduce yourself.
Okay. I'm Uleshka, originally a graphic designer. I came to live in Japan when I was 28. I lived there for 8 years and did all sorts of creative things, lots to do about design and writing. Then moved to Berlin 8 years ago because I was tired of the city and because we were having a baby. So being in Berlin for me also means motherhood. And ever since I'm in Berlin, although it's much greener than Tokyo, and ever since I have now two children, I've been thinking about really getting more into nature and particularly finding the right people to do this together with. Because I currently, for the last 8 years since I'm in Berlin, live in this typical situation, apartment, lots of stairs to take, nobody else in the building that supports you. I have two children. My husband works a lot as well. So I'm really in this situation that I really often wish there were some other people around me you could just share, like the kids with, share duties with, just, like don't be so isolated in an apartment building in an amazing city, but still feeling kind of lonely because all your friends are somehow too far away. So actually we met a couple of years ago when we first started, about when you did Earth Skylab and started that. So we were talking about, like what are communities, what would be important about communities. I really liked how you explained these three basic pillars, vision, organization, and relationships to me. And that is actually, like, I've been thinking about that a lot. Maybe we talk about it later, I don't know.
So that's very interesting. Thank you for for liking my ideas. I think there is a lot to think about in trying to build and develop a community. And it's funny that you say, you live in an apartment because it's a really beautiful apartment, the one that you live in. But
Thank
still,
you.
I think this is what a lot of us are realizing is that even if the apartment is big and beautiful, and probably even if it was a house in the city, not an apartment, you would still be feeling similar needs. So I understand you said connection and help with children, right? These are some of your motivations. What are some other ones?
Well, basically, I've been thinking about this since you last asked me, and I think my real fundamental underlying interest in life are relationships. I really like to, like talk about relationships, think about relationships, and I would say that I probably have a rather unusual progressive relationship myself. And I would just really like to, establish, join, whatever, be part of a community where there's just openness and tolerance and interest in new relationship models, like traditional models are totally fine, if people are happy with it, like there's no need to do anything like fancy. But I just like to see, like polyamorous relationships, lesbian, gay, whichever, constellation, patchwork families. I mean, that's like a kind of like a new relationship model that pretty much everybody is fine with nowadays.
Can you say a little bit what the patchwork family model is?
Patchwork family model basically means, imagine I and Dio would separate. You and Evgenia, you would already have two kids or something, and then we would get together. Then basically you still have your children, I still have my children. Maybe we make even another one. And then, it was some weekends your kids would come, some weekends I would have my kids, the other weekends they would be with the other partner, then we have our own children. That basically, because so many people separate at some point, and they still have kids, they have new partners, they have new children. So this kind of like mix of, different mothers, fathers, and, their children, that's considered patchwork family. And I think that's something that's very common, because it just happens, particularly in Berlin. At some point I realized that all of Dan's friends, like my son's friends, all of their parents were separated already, apart from us. now he has like some other friends, so there's actually still a couple being together. But you know, it's just very, very normal here that people are, you know, they just split up,
But
and then
I
they
think
find.
everywhere in the modern world. I remember one of my very dear close friends had to separate, and she was very worried about how her son was going to react to it. And her son was like, "Well, I just hope that my father doesn't move to the other side of town, so it's really far to commute like such and such of his friends." It was pretty much normal to him that, you know, the parents were going to separate. There was no shock.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is what I mean. Like, you know, this is a relatively new relationship model that's now kind of like okay and kind of like generally accepted. And I'm just interested in, sorry, in new forms of living together. You know, I like the idea of sharing children like you did in the old days with grandma, grandpa, auntie, whatever, sister. Only that
and
now you
and
just
really and
choose.
really the whole village, right? I mean, the whole village, everybody, you know, if they saw a child out of line or in trouble, I think everybody in the whole village would reach out and either correct them or help them.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's very interesting what you build up, what you say now about the patchwork families, because right now we're kind of at this stage where like, oh, you know, this is a bad thing, this is a struggle for the children, and so on and so forth. But I think if we did it in a kind of more positive, healthy way, this could actually be a big benefit to the children,
Mm-hmm.
because rather than having just the two parents to rely on for role models, for support, and so on and so forth, well, they actually have this much bigger network, like in the old days, of
Yeah.
elders to look up to. And, you know, I mean, children are not always exactly like us. And it's quite possible that the people that are better able to support them in their interests, in their path in life at different times are not their parents, right? It's their uncles, their aunts that are better able to recognize or see or support their interests, or support them in their struggles. So, yeah, this would be actually, it's a really beautiful thing in community if we can take this, what's now considered, you know, broken homes or broken families model, and turn it into, well, actually it's much stronger families, because children have a much bigger network of elder support to reach out to.
Yeah, and I think there's also like another component that that I see in this. So, for example, yesterday I happened to meet with a friend who separated, and she has the, you know, the typical struggle. 2 weeks the kids stay with her, 2 weeks the kids stay with dad, and essentially everybody gets tired of this back and forth and packing and back and forth. However, the I do like actually the aspect that, you know, kids are opposed to different kind of like life models, you know, like dad by now has his own circle of friends, mom has her own circle of friends. You know, this I kind of like that they get these two aspects, but it's hard for the kids to not have like one place where they belong. So if I imagine I was in a bigger community than my apartment, you know, where actually more people, then then basically I would have a place where kids can stay. I wouldn't have all this pressure on my relationship to function so much, because other people would help, you know, me with like functioning bits. So basically my relationship also has more space to become a relationship again, where it's kind of, you know, voluntary, like we want to be together, not we must be together because we have kids and because. And so I think that would take a lot of pressure from couples too. And basically, if I imagine myself living in this community right now, I really see a lot of, you know, like light positivity back in my relationship, because I can also say, look, you can come and do something with us if you want to. If not, no problem, you know, and same goes for me. The kids have their space. They can go to different places. You can get advice from different people. They get different perspectives. And for the relationship, you know, it's a lot of relaxation to not have this pressure. And I think this is also, you know, what I see in this community, that you get the opinions from others. kids are opposed to different life models. There's a lot of support, and also for the relationship, you can be a couple again, but also particularly as a woman, as a woman, like if for whichever reason we are already married for 15 years, by the way. So I have experience with long relationships.
So continuing, yeah, I agree with you. I think this village idea, community idea can really support and fill in many of what we see as gaps and shortcomings in current models and difficulties of how family works. If you look at the development of humanity, and there is many interesting works in this area. One book which I read recently, which I really love, is *Sapiens* by Harari. Is over the past 10,000 years, really, but especially over the past 200 years, since the first point being the agricultural revolution, second point being the industrial revolution, we've been really driven to separation from our communities, and we've been driven into this nuclear family model, which actually, if you look at it from the long history of our species, which is about 200,000 years or a few million, if you look at the previous Homo species, uh, our natural unit of being is a kind of tribe, not a nuclear family of mother, father, and two children. That's a completely new invention. And if you look at it, it's one that has been created through the Industrial Revolution or during the Industrial Revolution. And actually really interesting, but if you look especially over the past 100 years or so, the growth in GDP, a lot of it has been turning things which we used to do in the extended community, in the family, into paid services. Childcare used to be something that we did between close families within the community. It's been turned into a paid service. Similarly, learning is something that used to be part of the community. Everybody participated in the education of the young ones, and by young ones means anybody who's younger than the oldest person in the village. It was something that was done at a community level together, not something that was a paid service or a service provided by the state. So you mentioned that you're also interested in new learning models and how that could work within the village. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, for me, it comes from having my first child, who's 8 now, at a really normal public school. And he's essentially very, very unhappy about this. And on the other hand, when I see him, with, other people in groups out in nature, I see how he learns, so much by just, doing activities, by having projects, by, reflecting and trying out things. And as much as there are new and great school models, the reality is that they're not really happening yet, at least not on a mainstream level. There are some avant-garde schools who are maybe quite cool, but then everybody wants to be in there, so you can't get in there. So I would hope that once you create a community, that could either be, like, depending on how well it goes, complete new models, as of kind of like homeschooling, community schooling, where you either don't even have to attend a school at all, or that maybe also, if there are enough people in the community in Germany, it's relatively easy to start your own school. So there are various communities already who have summoned a couple of teachers or like other educators you need, and started their own school with like a parent initiatives who support the whole model. And I was basically saying that in Germany, it's relatively easy to set up your own school. So there's one kind of like around Hamburg, but countryside, where there's actually super lots of AfD, so kind of like super right-wing people, say basically a horrible countryside area. but because, you know, there was like a nice kind of like old village, an opportunity, a couple of people gathered, and then more and more people gathered, and then they, you know, created this school as well, because they were a school, and even more people moved there. So there's now this island, you know, within this kind of like right-wing countryside, is the super liberal. That also around Berlin, there is an area called Uckermark where people established a school. Many kind of like, you know, let's say free people, like people who are like artists, or you know, like writers, journalists, who don't need to be in the city, who can work independently. They went over there with their kids and started the school. And this is also something I'm interested in, but I haven't really found the recipe of how to do this, to, you know, like really find a way to establish this non-location based working. Like currently I'm employed somewhere, but I would like to also maybe somehow use the community um, as a support to also be able to work remotely somewhere. So I guess like most people do, they start with, you know, like just finding the place, commuting for a while, and then they see, you know, how they can maybe find work within the community, whether it's like doing their website or like doing stuff there that somehow, you know, like helps them to have a little income there, or to just generally spend less on something. And so this is another thing I'm looking into, like how can you work remotely. And for me, there's like two things that go hand in hand, because I wouldn't want to commute all the time. You know, I would like to commute as little as possible.
Yeah, of course. And also, I think if you commute too much, that's detrimental to the community, because if you're not there most of the time, that really cuts down, or you know, a lot of the time, that really cuts down on your ability to contribute, to, you know, help out with other people's children, and just to be around. You know, if it's just a bedroom community, that really pulls you out from the life of the community, I think.
Mm.
So learning in the community, or a school as a centerpiece,
Mm-hmm.
or one of the pillars of the community, a mutually supported parenting, helping each other in remote work and supporting each other in remote work, maybe doing some startups, or I think actually, even if we can just kind of support each other through mentoring, through coaching, through being there for each other, that is
Yeah.
more than enough, or
Yeah.
as a start. Certainly, as somebody who works freely, this is something that I've been feeling for a long time, is just the lack and the need for coaching, for mentoring, for, you know, somebody to be there for you long term, and help you through your career path.
Mm.
And then you also mentioned nature, connection with nature.
Yes. So I find that be it age, be it children, be it just, you know, being human, I really find that I need to reconnect with nature more and more. I really, you know, it's anything from missing the good air to, you know, all these nice researches about how like bacteria and stuff in the soil actually releases happiness hormones. You know, it's just something very natural for us humans to do. I started getting a little bit into soil workshops, actually, like how to, you know, whatever, use pee and poo to really like dung the ground, and to like really give back the soil what's been lacking from all these years of like industrial revolution and not having like proper soil. How can you revitalize this to, you know, keep growing stuff? And then of course there's somehow, you know, this fear also of you know, like not having enough proper vegetables and stuff in the future. You never really know what's going to happen. So I believe that, you know, when you live in a community and you can at least be to a certain extent self-sustainable, you know, this is something that's very, very calming, you know, for me to know there is some earth where I can grow something. It's a very, very deep feeling of security somehow, you know, to know that you're not going to starve essentially somehow, because I mean the world's going crazy, and I think if I had like this piece of land I could connect to, I could watch plants grow, you know, like kids can plant something, watch it grow. It's something we totally lost living in the city, and I think we actually really need it for various reasons.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Even if not self-sufficiency, if you are living in the countryside, you at least have the option of, like you say, grow some things, which lets us reconnect back to where our food comes from, and also your ability to buy locally.
Mm-hmm.
And you reduce your food miles. You can buy from nearby farmers and have this real connection of where your food comes from. I think that's very important. So that's a beautiful picture: family, learning, remote work, connection to nature. What do you think some of your steps are now to start moving in this direction?
I started with a very boring Excel list, actually, where I kind of pinned down the communities I'm already somewhat in contact or that I've heard about, checking out if they have some whatever open weekends or things to like get to know them, participate them. Next week I'm gonna check out Nieglitz. That's somewhere between Hamburg and Berlin. That's apparently kind of echo-ish focus community. And there's one I regularly go to already, in Strausberg, close to Berlin, where a couple of people bought an old GDR hotel and they established some sort of weekend-ish community, which I think doesn't really work in the long term because it's essentially that. But this is also a place to talk to other people and see what they're up to. And I'm just really starting this actually, but I think there are a lot of communities I know already in Berlin where I can talk more, find people, and see if at some point I either find something that I like, or maybe there is a place I can join. Um,
Great.
this is what I'm
Uh,
hoping.
Maybe you can share the list that you're working on with our listeners.
Yeah, I
Uh,
could.
so we'll add the link to wherever we post the video.
Mhm.
And are you open to people interested in your ideas and what you're
Totally,
thinking about contacting with you?
totally. So I would essentially I would really like to start like maybe a monthly meetup just at my place. Whoever I have summoned already who's interested, to just come and hang out, talk about their next steps, just slowly start to connect people. And if I manage, also write little reports about the communities I have been to, on this on the same link. And yes, I mean, if there would be anybody who would want to reach out, who has ideas, who wants to join, I'd be very happy about this.
Great, wonderful. Well, I look forward to posting this video. I'm sure some people will contact you. Certainly on our village builders list, we have many people who share many of the ideas that you're looking for. So I hope you also become a village builder member. Our last meetup in Berlin, actually, we had 33 or something people. So there is that group. So, yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts today. And let's make this our journey. This is a key thing that is the goal of the Village Builders organization, is that people like you, people like me, all of us, we go on this journey together, not alone. Because I think that will be more fun, and it'll be easier for everybody and more fun.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.